What up? What up? This is the Roast with Friends podcast. It's your boy JayMan here again with C Rock. It's our third episode, making
Congratulations to us.
making progress. I think we got four total views across all platforms. So at least we got more
Damn.
views than episodes. uh, Today
Yeah.
we're gonna switch it up a little bit. We're gonna talk about toxic parenting. Um, people my age, a lot of us dealt with toxic parents, and at the time we didn't really understand it. And to be fair, they didn't understand it either. Our parents did their best. They had probably worse parents than us, to be honest.
Straight up.
So they were just, passing down what they had known best. A lot of us got hit with the belt, got whoopings, got yelled at, and then um I think some of the part that's messed up about yelling at kids is you got to at least explain to them why they did you know why they did something wrong. Just yelling at the top of your lungs and smacking your kid around, like how are they supposed to learn anything from that?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Me personally, I got one kid, one on the way.
Mhm.
I'm like totally against corporal punishment, hitting your kids. Um, I mean, if we're gonna be 100% black people, that's just how the slave master taught us to discipline our kids. So I'm just, there's two things I don't follow: the slave master's religion and the slave master's way of disciplining my children. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I totally stay away from that. And if you want to get academic with it, like there's plenty of studies that show the negative effects of it. It causes depression, resentment. It's just not an effective way to discipline a child. I will say this though, it gets quick results. Like,
Yep.
but it isn't, a good way, and I mean, rightfully so. What if your boss was bigger and stronger than you and you didn't do something and he just slapped your ass around till you did it? It'll probably get quick results, you know, like, or,
Yeah.
so it does get results, but it's not like an effective way to discipline your children. So, causes anger issues, a lot of different things. So I really think we should give it up, but
Yeah, I agree. And then another thing that's probably gonna have to be its own other episode is generational trauma.
mhm,
There's actually scientific research out there that shows that stuff that happened to our great 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 like 14 generations higher than us, some of the trauma they inflicted is it could potentially be in our DNA. And it could that's like how you're saying, the slave master mentality, just, having slaves whipping on them. Like, if you think about it, we got hit with the belt, If you think about it, that's kind of similar to getting hit. But I mean, obviously not as bad, of course, from getting
mhm,
hit with a whip, but that that type of trauma gets can get passed down.
mhm. So, that's just one aspect of it. You know, most abuse actually is verbal. You know, you got to just really watch how you talk to your children and things you say to them. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, would you got to understand, like, you're the first person your child loves. You're the first person your child trusts. Their literally life depends on you. So you're teaching them how they should be treated or how they should be respected. And like you see it all the time, like just like a lot of people disrespect the shit out their children and shit like that. And it's just like, that's another thing that causes trauma. And there's lots of research on that too that shows negative effects on that shit. So I just think, you got to really realize that, your children, they're not just small adults, they're
Yeah.
people whose brains aren't even fully developed, you know? So you got to take that into account. You know what I mean? You can either
Yeah.
breathe life or breathe death, like or breathe destruction into them. You know, you can either breathe, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? You can either breathe like confidence and goodness into them, or you can breathe negativity into them. You know, so that's like another thing. You know, it's not just about physical. It's like most of it's mental.
Yeah, that's true. And then the confidence thing, I remember seeing like an article I read like a few months ago, like parents that are worried about like when their kids go out like to parties and like, when they start doing the teenager shit where they, might not be hanging out with the right groups of kids, those types of challenges. And the article is basically saying the best thing you can do for your child is instill confidence into them, because when they're confident to literally just say the word no when they're out on
Mhm,
their own, at least they're making their own decisions instead of just,
mhm,
these five or six kids are doing this,
mhm,
stupid thing, whatever it is, drugs or whatever. And they ended up, they don't want to be the one person out of the six that's not doing it. But like if you
mhm,
instill confidence into your child, instead
mhm,
of yelling at them all the time every time they mess up, and teaching them why they're messing up and the consequences, things like that, things of that nature. And then they're more likely to make better decisions when they are out away from the home. You can't
mhm.
really protect them how you want to.
Another thing too that me and like my wife practice is something like she explained it exactly a lot, like actually a lot better than me. Is too like speaking of yelling at the children, never yell at them for stuff that you wouldn't yell at your like, or don't get mad at them for stuff that you wouldn't get mad at yourself for. And an example of
Mm-hmm.
that is like, you know, one of my like let me give you an example. One of my nieces, like we're having a party when my niece was over here, she got some food and like she was walking with it and she dropped her plate on the floor, you know, and all the food went on the floor. And my
Yeah.
brother-in-law gets mad and he starts yelling at her. And it's just like, nah, chill, you know, because if you would have dropped the food on the floor, you would have just cleaned it up and got, you know, like there's plenty of food. You would have just got more food. Like, what are you yelling at this kid for about it? You know what I mean? Like, it's a ultimately a fixable mistake. You just clean the food up. We just cleaned the floor really quick and moved on. You know what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
no reason to even raise your voice at them at that moment in time. So it's just like, hey, you know, fine, we'll fix it. You know, like so you got to think about that. Like, you know, if your kid drops a glass or a plate or something, like, don't yell at them or hit them for it. It's just who cares, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of funny you said that, because I had the exact same story almost that I was going to bring up about how, like, I remember I was at one of my friend's house and same thing. Their kid had dropped some food on the floor and like they got yelled at, slapped on the hand. And I was drinking, so I broke a glass, and like I'm like, oh my god, like I'm so sorry, and they like like cut in front of me, like no no no, it's okay, like don't worry about it, like I'll go get the broom, and like they're being so cordial to me because I'm an adult,
Mm-hmm,
and you just yelled at your kid for the same thing. In fact, what I did was worse,
mm-hmm,
and sometimes we forget that in some instances we can hold like a 6 or 7 year old to a higher standard than we would, like you said, ourselves, or an adult spouse,
mm-hmm,
somebody else. Like kids are gonna make silly mistakes like that. They're careless. We're careless sometimes too, and like you said, their brains just developing. The
mm-hmm,
best thing you can do in that moment is just have them clean it up, and explain to them why they need to be more careful, take their time getting
mm-hmm,
their water or whatever it is, and make it a learning lesson, because they're gonna get more out of that situation from learning than just getting
mm-hmm.
yelled at, and when they just made an honest mistake.
Yeah, it's like you know, and like I said, like I'm more compassionate towards a lot of people, but it's just like a lot of people haven't dealt with their trauma and they're taking it out on their kids. And in fact, it was just like, you know, it's gonna be another episode, but you know, like you see it on the internet. You know, you see people who are just like you know going off on other people. And you're just like, man, this dude ain't okay. You know, like you can't be that bad
Yeah.
over like the results of a football game or some shit. It's just like, you know, but a lot of y'all are taking your your frustrations out on your kids and shit like that, and it's not right because it's not their fault. And a lot of y'all
Yeah.
need to deal with your trauma or deal with your shit even before having them, because they're innocent, you know, and you got to stop pathologizing them too. Like moving on to the next topic, I see people do this too much to where like, like a 2 year old will do something or a 2 year old will like, oh, you tell them to do it, stop, hey, don't do that, and then they just do it anyway. You're like, oh, see, he know what he's doing. He's like, well, no, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's fucking two.
Hmm.
He just can't
And
control his impulses. His
yeah,
brain
and
isn't
just to
developed yet.
yeah, just to interject there real quick regarding that exact topic you brought up. I actually read another article regarding stuff like that is what you're supposed to do in that situation. Like when kids are or the toddler age like 2 to about 4.5, 5, they genuinely don't know any better. They don't understand consequences and stuff like that. And what happens is if you like say you see your kid standing on the table and he's getting ready to jump off and potentially break his arm or hurt, jump on his brother or sister, do some wrestling move. Saying don't jump off the table is actually the worst thing you can say because when kids are that age, all they're hearing is the last thing you're saying. All they're hearing is jump off. They don't really get the don't contraction
Mm-hmm,
as we do easily as adults. So they're just a little kid, their little brain, they hear jump off and then they jump off because that's what you said. So what you should do in that type of situation is bring up an alternative,
mm-hmm,
like sit down. Don't
mm-hmm,
say jump off or don't tell them what not to do because whatever your last 2 to 3 words are, that's what they're going to hear. And I'm pretty sure you've seen this before too. A 3 or 4 year old, they get told not to do something and then they do it, and then when they get hit, they're like kind of surprised. You know what I mean? Like,
mm-hmm.
yeah, they don't understand consequences, but in that situation, they thought they were given permission to do it. They can't articulate that though because their
Yeah,
brains are, like you
are
said,
not
they're not fully
developed.
developed yet.
I think this like my wife did it when we had our first child, and just she taught me a lot. But I would say this, like Black people, we need to go to counseling. Like I've done it, we all do. Like we deal with a lot in this society, and
Facts.
you need to go to counseling, and primarily a Black counselor, and before you have children, you need to do that, and also you need to take an early childhood development class to learn some of these things. My wife learned a lot of things, like from that class, how to get them to learn things quicker, like how they learn things, and little like projects you can do as they get certain ages, and stuff like that. And it really teaches you a lot. Like I wouldn't have known some of this stuff if it wasn't for her. And it was just like because that's we're just taught like, oh yeah, yeah, like it's passed down. We're usually taught it's passed down by generation to generation, but sometimes it just ain't right.
Hmm.
Just like I said, like a lot of people still believe, like, man, yes, they know what they doing, like with a 2 year old. And she's like, no, no, they don't.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, and this class will teach you that. Like I learned it, like, yeah, dude, like, my wife was like, dude, their brains still developing. They're not little kid, like little adults. And I was like, damn, that's so true. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, so I just think, a lot of us, like I said, like most people will be a good parent, but like I said in the past episode, we could always get better. You know what I mean? So I just think like, yeah, that can help out a lot of people, and know yourself too. Like I said, I didn't have my first child till I was 28. And I think at 21, 22, I wouldn't have been mature enough to handle it. I knew myself. That's why like I was careful with things that I did, you know, on an aspect. And I made sure like when Olivia, my first child's name Olivia, when she was born, like I wasn't scared, nothing. I was just ready. I knew I was ready, so
Yeah.
so it actually says it in a book too that I read, the ISIS Papers by Dr. Frances Quest Wellesley, and she said it too. Like, just we don't live in a system as Black people that produces Black men and Black women that are mature enough mentally or emotionally to have children. So she says we should all put it off till later in life, like
Yeah.
because of that. You know what I mean? Because if not, you're gonna pass on the same trauma. You're gonna pass on the same things. And so, yeah, awkward
Yeah, I
silence.
feel that.
Nah, but yeah, like, I guess just that point hit hard. You know what I mean? Like, but you know, other things too. Like just to go back to corporal punishment, dude. Like sometimes it's not even like needed. I can think about all the times I got an ass whooping, and I can just honestly say like most of it wasn't deserved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I remember my mom. She got my auntie gave her a bottle of like I guess it was expensive perfume, and like I remember like it had like a pointy top, and I was probably like 7, 6 or something, and like I remember I was playing with it. I thought it was like a wizard or something. I don't know. I was using my imagination, and
Yeah.
like I spilt it, and like it all spilt out. It was on accident, and like I remember, yeah, I came. My mom came home and she smelt it, and she was just like, "Oh, what you doing, my cologne?" And then or my perfume, and then yeah, I remember, yeah, she beat the shit out of me for that fucking perfume, and I could just like, and now I think as an adult, like my daughter could right now walk in here and break every single bottle of cologne I have, and I still wouldn't feel it was warranted for me to beat the shit out of her for it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I couldn't phantom hitting my daughter now, or even my son that's on the way, over a bottle of fucking cologne. Like I couldn't phantom even doing that because I'm just like thinking back, like dude, that was fucking damn near 30 years ago. It's like it's
Yeah.
inconsequential. Like I didn't maliciously break the cologne or the perfume or whatever, and ultimately, in the greater scheme of things, how important was it to like beat the shit out your 7-year-old for it? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like it's just that's a memory. Like I guarantee you, if I was to bring it up to my mom, she probably forgot about that. But that's a memory that I still hold at 40 years old. Of just innocently playing with this bottle that I didn't fucking know and just getting the shit beat out of me for it. You know,
Yeah.
and it's just not right. And so, like that's why I said, like I knew even then, like I was like, dude, if I have children, I'm not gonna hit my children. Like, and that honestly, that's starting to pass on a lot within like Black people. We're elder millennials, and especially what do they call it after us, Gen Zs and shit like that. Like even Gen X, which came before us, like a lot of them still just don't do it. A lot still do, but yeah, a lot just don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. And for a lot, you see it on TikTok a lot. Like a lot of people are just like nah. So I think that's a good thing, but I still see it. Like, and it's even hard
Yeah, I
to
feel
break.
that.
It's still hard to even break what we like. What we've been told, because sometimes like I'll be at work or like at my other job, and there'd be some badass kid, and then my first thing I have to check myself. Or just like, man, he need to ask. I'm like, no, he don't. He just don't know how to. He just doesn't know how to fucking control himself.
Yeah.
He can't regulate his emotions. Like his brain isn't developed yet. Like and I have to check myself still.
So
You know,
some of them do need ass whoopings though. Some some parents they just kind of let their kids run wild. Like, come
I think the
on now, there's
parent.
got to
I
be a
think the
point.
parents need to ass whooping.
That's
I
true
think.
too.
I think
Well,
like a lot.
some parents don't want to raise their kids.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, genuinely and literally raise them. They just, they'll feed them, make sure they have clothes and shit like that, but they don't want to take time out of their day to teach them, why when you take them out to Walmart or Target or some shit, why they shouldn't be acting like that. And yeah, if they're like 4 or 5, like I get it, but I'm talking about like kind of like the older kids.
yeah. We gotta be honest. Like a lot of these people didn't want their kids.
Yeah,
A lot of people wanted a baby, not a kid. Like I see that a lot. Like a baby go grow up and not be a baby no more, and it's kind of so I see that a lot. But uh, like you see it, yeah, like you're 100% right. It's like a lot of people don't want to really do that aspect of the job, or maybe don't know
hmm
how. I don't know. Maybe they don't know how. Maybe or they just you know, people come in, their kids be just running around, and then like you look at the mother and you're just like, oh my god, like you're looking at her, and then like I remember one time and she's just looking like, God, that's the first time I got a break from these motherfuckers all day. And so part of me is
Yeah.
just like, okay, I kind of get it. Dealing with two rambunctious little boys can be tiring. So I kind of get it. I kind of like, all right, fuck it. They can, let them run around. Like they got a lot of energy, like, and it's tough. So like I said, man, I try to have like a little bit of compassion about it. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like I know it's hard.
Yeah. Some of these parents, and then like how you said they didn't really want to be parents, and some of them didn't even like come from a healthy home environment. Like
Hmm.
dad isn't around, mom isn't around,
Hmm.
whatever the case may be, might be a single parent home, and that brings a whole lot of other challenges
Yeah.
to that type of situation. And but yeah, you're right. A lot of people want a baby.
Hmm.
They don't want to deal with like when they're turning 8, 9, 10, getting into their teen years. Like that's the hard part. And then a lot of people don't understand like it's not your job to be friends with your kids.
Hmm.
You have to raise your kids. And then if you do a well enough job, maybe in their mid 20s, that's when you can start being actual friends
Hmm.
and having those types of interactions, because you have to raise them to be a respectable adult, because if no
Hmm.
one does, they're just going to be out in these streets just freaking terrorizing people because no one ever taught them any
Hmm.
better. And that's how some parents raise their kids. They're like, you know what, I just have them go outside and just terrorize everybody else because
Hmm.
I don't want to deal with that. And the problem with that is once they get to that age, that like 12, 13, 14, and they're disrespectful to the mom, disrespectful to the dad. I've
Hmm.
even seen some disrespectful to their grandmother. Like at that point, like you're kind of fucked because
Yeah.
you allowed them to get all the way to 12, 13, 14 years old being disrespectful to everybody. And it's kind of too late to nip it in the bud at that point.
Hmm. You see it. We, like I said, like we had a homegirl. We both know who we were talking about. I ain't throwing out no names. Who was like that, and she grew into a disrespectful ass adult. You know what I mean? Like she was. Well, we met her when she was an adult, but you could tell like they allowed it by how she treated her grandma, and shit like that. And it was like disgusting. You know what I mean? And like I said, but
Yeah.
you can teach them. You can teach them by not saying you got to beat the shit out of them. Part of the reason is the example that you lead. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the pest control dude came the other day, and he was just, oh yeah, I'm gonna go in the back. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna, I'm like, yes sir. I was like, oh yes sir, yeah. Like, and he was just like, hey, he's like, hey, were you former military? I'm like, nah. And he was like, oh yeah, because you say yes sir all the time. I was like, nah, it's just something I picked up when my daughter, before my daughter was born. Because I'm like, dude, like, if I'm not respectable to other people, how can I not tell her to be? You know what I mean? Like if I'm
Yeah.
sitting here like, oh, being a dick to people, like, so I was like, dude, like it's just something I say, yes sir, yes ma'am. I say in the drive through, I say like, hey, this is how you speak to people, like this is,
Mhm.
but some people don't do that. Like, going back to my job, I had some lady came in. I'm fixing this whole like, area, and I had to take a bunch of stuff down on and put it on the floor to reset it. And this lady comes to the aisle, and she had probably like 4 kids, and they just literally walk next to me. They're stepping on all the shit I took off the aisle. Like I took off and just she says nothing. So I get up. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I was like, dude, I'll go do something else. Wait till she. So I kept coming back to see like, oh, has she left? And they're just destroying this aisle. And she was just like, why do you keep coming
Damn.
back? You're making me uncomfortable. I was like, well, I was working here, so I'm trying to see if you're done. Like, she's like, yeah, I know my kids are bad, and blah, 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 and you don't have to keep coming over looking. I was like, well, I have to finish. And it was just, I was like, this is why these kids are little assholes, because like, no, you were non-apologetic about everything that just happened. You said
Yeah.
nothing to them, and you basically just said, yeah, that was all right, because you don't want to deal with them. It's like, hey, dude, if you didn't want to deal with these 4 kids, like you shouldn't have had them. I'm sorry, your baby daddies or husbands or whatever got weak pullout game, but that's not my fucking problem. Or maybe you should have been on some birth control, bitch. Like but stop, like had the nerve to get offended, like. But and that's why I was like,
People
dude,
people get embarrassed in
yeah,
that type of situation. So they lash out at the person that's making them feel that way when you're just trying to do your job.
yeah, it's like, dude, that's a you problem. Like, I'm sorry, like you failing as a parent, that shows like, yeah, you get embarrassed. It shows you have a level of shame. And shame is a higher brain function. But do something about it. If you're ashamed of something, then fucking fix it. But don't just lash out at everybody else and make it everybody else's problem, like you said. So it like I don't blame the kids. It starts with the parents a lot of times. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
but like going back to the original topic, like you can't be toxic about it. You gotta be, you know, not saying you can't come down on them or you gotta be nice about everything, but you're better off sort of explaining it to them, or punishing them in a way to where you don't leave scars, physical or mental. You know what I mean? To where you can get your fucking
Hmm.
point across. Like if they're not doing like I had a homegirl who's she had an older son and he was doing good in math class. And she's like, oh, well, his math grade dropped, tried to whoop his ass. I'm like, well, maybe you should find out why his grade dropped before you sit here and
Hmm.
just whoop his ass. What if he got into a part of the class where he doesn't understand? Maybe he needs a fucking tutor. You know, like what's the is an ass
Yeah.
whooping going to help him learn his fractions? Like she gonna beat him a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Like oh, beat his ass. Like but you know it's just like yeah, dude. You're gonna scar that kid, and it's gonna have. And like I said, you go to TikTok, you see a lot of people who don't have fuck like relationships with their parents, or like we talked about, they don't want to be around their parents anymore because of the way they raised them. Like
Yep.
and and then they get older and they just don't know why. So it could have real world like effects on you. You know what I mean? Because yeah, you taking care of this person, but that's the person that you're gonna need to take care of you later in life. So
Yeah. And then like to go back to your other point, when it comes to kids, they're gonna learn 90% by example. So like
hmm
that's why it's kind of funny to me whenever parents like, oh, I didn't raise them that way. And like I kind of know them as a person. It's like, yeah, you probably told them this and that, right and wrong. But like the way you move is how your
hmm
kids are gonna move. And like I've seen you do a whole bunch of shady shit in your life,
hmm
even as an adult, even with kids. And like kids are gonna observe that more than anybody else in your life. And so they're gonna move like that.
hmm
Instead of listening to what you're saying, they're gonna move the way you move.
yeah. It's just like, I remember, and that's so true because, when I did have Olivia, remember I was in college and
Hmm.
right when she turned around the age of 2, I remember like, yeah, I'd be doing homework on my computer or something. And she had this little computer and it was cute. She would call it her computer. but and like she'd see me doing it and she would get her little toy computer and come sit next to me and like play on her little computer. And
Hmm.
we it's funny, yeah, Jackie took a picture of it one time and she and then there's another picture to where like I'm reading a book for class and she goes and gets a book and lays next to me and like
Hmm.
it's just a book of of like it was letters, but she comes next to me and then Jackie, my wife, she had took a picture of that. And then I put the caption like, hey, remember your children always do as you do, not as you say. you know
Exactly.
so it's you teach them by how you are. So it's 100% true. Like your children, like you see some of these people, like I said, I see him a story, it's just like, man, that child's gonna grow up to be a little fucking, like we're gonna have to deal with him later. 10 years from now.
Yeah.
He gonna be up in here doing the same shit. Like but yeah, it's true. So I guess it's more like not just being a toxic parent, don't be a toxic person, you know
Hmm.
because or a toxic person with kids. So
A lot of them are, unfortunately.
yeah, man, because it's like we both dealt with that. We talked about it, and like there's a lot we had to just personally kind of get over with our own mothers and fathers. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And like you know, about their toxic ways, but it's just like it's tough because sometimes you have to just, say, man, he's that way because that's like my father, like he's that way because he was raised that way. And sometimes you just got to let it go. But
Yeah.
it takes a toll because you're just like, damn, dude, we're not as close as we should be because of that. You know what I mean? And that's just something that can't be, I'm not even sure it can be repaired at this moment in time. And the same thing with my mother, like, and that shit sucks.
Yeah, both sides. Like it has a lasting effect, like the on opposite ends, how you're just talking about leading by example with your daughter. Everything that she saw you doing has a lasting effect because she's doing great in school now.
Hmm.
And then like the experience you had as a child with your parents, the trauma they cause, that's having a lasting effect as well. So it's like
Yeah.
it goes back to those development years. I think it's what up to the age of 6 or 7 is where you like really really shape the type of human you're bringing into this world.
It
And
was,
after that it's really hard to undo when you don't raise them right around those years.
hmm
Teach them respect, and don't yell don't yell at them and beat the hell out of them every day
exactly.
for
It
being a
was,
child.
it was weird because it's just like, they were like, it's funny. Like I was reading a book one time and it was just like, hey, it just like to ask the question. They were like, hey, were you always punished when you messed up, but never given like positive reinforcement when you did good? And as a child, it was like, well, now as an adult, are you a procrastinator? Do you wait to the last moment to do everything and shit like that? I was like, hell yeah, I procrastinate, till like
Yeah,
the
that's me
pressure's
too.
on. And it was just like, that's exactly why you do it, because you know you avoid dealing with things sometimes, you know what I mean, to the last moment. And it was just like I said, it's like, it's just the shit I have to break as an adult. And it's weird. It's just like we talked about, like, and it's funny because I saw this on TikTok. Somebody was saying, like, hey, we have to heal from a version of a person that don't exist anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because when all this shit was happening, my mother was like in her 30s, and now she's like in her 60s, and she don't remember a lot of it. And it's just like she's
Hmm.
really a totally different person than she was back then. And it was just like, damn, you have to sort of like heal from that. You know what I mean? And it's like, like I said, I give her a level of understanding. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because of that, because she was dealing with a lot, but it still hurt. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, but the most important part is you're doing the work and you're
yeah,
doing better by your daughter. So I mean, you already won. So
yeah,
you should be proud of yourself.
yeah. It's yeah, because yeah, man, it's fucking hard. Like just thinking back, like about how some of that shit made you feel, and shit like that. And as men, we're not even like it goes in, like I said, another episode we need to bring up. It goes into just like how we're not even supposed to talk about it, or like our trauma's blown away, blown away,
Yep.
blown off, you know? And then you wonder why, like, because I go hard on men because we do a lot of damage, but a lot of it is just like we aren't really raised correctly. We aren't raised to process certain emotions unless it's aggression or anger. We're not
Yep.
raised to, really know how to love, really know how to deal with, rejection. We're not, we're just supposed to just be stoic and quiet and shit. And even when you try to express some of this shit, like, women will blow you off. Like, the women in your life will
Yeah.
blow you off. Like, my wife did it, will do it a couple times. Like, she's even said it flat out to me before. Like one time, like in the past, she's like, "Oh yeah, I know you had a messed up childhood, but you just got to get over that." And it's just like, damn, I'm just supposed to get over it. And then like I brought it up to her, she was just like, "Well, because I was like, women tend to blow it off," and she was like, "Well, we're not psychiatrists, and what are we supposed to do?" And I was like, "Now let's flip that. What if when you had Olivia and you were going through postpartum depression, and I
Hmm.
was just like, well, you need to get over it, because we got a baby to raise, and blah blah blah." And then like, you know, and then when you bring it up, like, man, that was messed up, and I just responded, well, I'm not a psychiatrist, and you put that on the internet, y'all would jump, all these women would jump down my throat, and I'd be the worst husband in the world, and rightfully so. But
Yeah.
it's okay when you do it to me. You know what I mean? Like, we're just supposed to, oh, well, like, we both go through a lot of the same shit, you
Yeah,
know?
and you're right. And that's a big problem with like society in general, like you said. And like it's kind of funny because like I know you've heard this before. I probably know everyone that's listening right now have heard this before, is they're like, oh, boys are easy to raise. And it's not true. It's the fact that you just think you can put a boy in sports, give him a ball, give him a hobby up
Hmm.
until he's in college, maybe he plays college ball. And like that's all you have to do is make sure he's a ball player, go get a scholarship, potentially
Hmm.
set for life, obviously small chance he makes it to the league. And some people, that's their entire a strategy for raising boys. And it's like, that's really, really fucked up when you really think about it,
You're
because
ignoring that.
that's
You're
part
ignoring
of
that
the
part.
reason why men grow up the way they do. Like, I'm no way, shape, or form in like saying this any of this is okay, but like they end up murdering,
Hmm.
rape, everything, that's fucking terrorizing women and shit like that. It's because no one told them any different. They're like, oh, you're the strongest on the field, or you're the best on the court. You can do whatever you want. And they
Hmm.
kind of grow up with that mindset
Hmm.
because a lot of parents are just like, oh, it's easy to raise boys. So they put no effort into it. They put all the effort into making sure the girls know how to be respectable. I remember seeing a post or like, oh, there's your dad's friends are coming over, don't have on any shorts. Like, it's like this is her house. Like if your dad has friends over where your daughter can't be wearing shorts, then those friends shouldn't even be over, and they shouldn't even be your friends, honestly.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got like
And
a
so
minute.
we
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 got
we
like a minute
teach
and a
her,
half.
okay.
Yeah.
And so we teach our daughters that at a young age to be wary of men and how to deal with men, and you can get raped, you can get murdered,
Hmm.
any possible, the worst. And with men, we don't teach them anything. We don't
Hmm.
teach them how to, like you said, how to deal with women, how to respect women, how to talk to women. And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden they're 22 years old. They didn't make it to the league. They
Hmm.
failed college. Their scholarship's gone. And now they're 22 and they just lived this entire life of just playing fucking basketball, playing football. Now their life just nosedives,
Hmm.
and then they become these resentful, angry men that just want to go out to the bars, get into fights,
Hmm.
be aggressive with women, etc.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
It's fucked up how society does man, excuse me, does men. And at the same time, it's our responsibility to be better and deal with it.
Yeah.
But the
Hey, but this is
deck
gonna
is
have to
stacked
be
against us.
it's gonna have to be continued on the next episode. I think we're gonna pick that up like right after, like
For
about,
sure.
hey, how society raises men. So hey, tune in next episode. Thanks for tuning in to Roasting with Friends. I'm some guy, my man JayMan Jay.